Official figures show annual net migration into the UK reached a record high of 606,000 last year. It's a 20% increase on last year's figures and is expected to increase political pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who had pledged to bring the numbers down. The combination of international conflict, including the war in Ukraine, and the government push to increase the number of foreign students have led to record numbers of arrivals in that country. Well, for more on this, let's bring in Arise correspondent Lape Olarinoye, who is monitoring developments from London. Lape, it's good to have you with us. Now, tell us more about what's behind this rise in the numbers.
Well, as you just touched on then, Nii, this net migration increase is the highest it's been in this decade, and that is predominantly because of the humanitarian routes that have been opened up as a result of global conflict in Hong Kong, in Ukraine, where hundreds of thousands of people have now been allowed to come into the UK and, of course, seek asylum and continue their lives here and find a haven to remain in. They have been prioritized under that route. And so that, of course, has contributed to a surge in those numbers. Then, of course, we have illegal migration, people arriving on small boats, which was said to have been just last year up to 30,000 people came via small boats. We know that there's a clampdown on that happening as well with this transfer, if you like, to Rwanda that's still in process. Then, of course, we've got the emergence of the student and work visa routes that have also emerged within the last 3 years, which has made it a very, very difficult battle for the UK government as well as businesses and health systems that rely on people coming in from abroad to do skilled work that is underskilled in this country and therefore cheaper to get from abroad, and also you have the right skills that you're in demand of. These are the 3 or 4, if you like, main contributing factors to that increase. But it's worth adding here that if we look at the rest of Europe, the UK isn't still in the highest category here. Countries like Germany, under former Chancellor Angela Merkel, had the highest. They had people coming in, not just from Ukraine, but also from Syria, as well as other parts of the world, following all the conflict that we've seen in the last couple of years. Now, in the UK, of course, the government has promised to bring that down. The Conservative government, that is, it's one of their very early pledges to bring that net migration figure down. So, of course, they've been met with the biggest challenge after the pandemic of their administration in tackling those numbers.
Noted, Lape. Now, how much pressure does this put the Prime Minister under, considering that he's pledged to cut those numbers down significantly?
Yes, he has, and he has a number of ways and methods that he has proposed with the help of his Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, to cut down those numbers. But the crux of the matter here is that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Conservative government came under a lot of pressure for the way in which they handled it, the way in which they behaved as individual lawmakers, but also the way in which the country suffered as a result of the pandemic. So that, of course, has been bubbling since those years. And now, of course, migration, which was a big pledge that the Conservative government made when they assumed office, is now again at the front and centre of yet again another debate about the type of leadership that the Conservative government have had. We know that there's an election coming up at the end of next year, so it will be January 2025. So the administration slowly comes to an end at the end of next year. So these policies are coming in place as a way, quite frankly, to get a lot of their traditional voters the assurance that the Conservative Party remain fulfilling their promises and intend on serving the people across the country and within their constituencies. So it's not just a policy to bring down net migration. It's also a policy to reassure some of their traditional voters. The Conservative government recently had by-elections only a couple of weeks ago when the coronation was happening, which they lost in many parts woefully to the opposing Labour Party. So it's a tough time for them to reassure voters. It's a tough time for them to make sure that they are clinging on to this power that they have right now if they are going to win that next election.
Indeed, Lape. Now, some would argue there are many benefits to increased migration for the economy, you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I touched on it earlier. I mean, other than the fact that, yes, the health services and the housing systems are under a lot of crisis as a result of increased net migration, you must remember this country is an island, it's small, there isn't that much land mass. So unfortunately, there is a very close eye on immigration. However, that's not to say that there isn't a significant contribution that people coming into the country contribute to the economy. Now, for example, if we look at the health system, there's a substantial amount of health workers that come from abroad outside of the EU who are keeping the NHS going, who are saving lives and contributing to an already ailing healthcare system. Of course, in areas like technical work, engineers, doctors, nurses, care workers, teachers are all coming from abroad to contribute to a system that is in demand of them. Now, if you couple that with the fact that this country cannot meet the demand of skilled workers that they need with the people that already live here and are from here, it begs the question, how much should they really be bringing in? Is it worth them coming in? And my answer to that is absolutely. Having said that, there is also other contributions. I mean, if you and I both know the cost that these people who are coming in from different parts of the world pay just to get a visa, just to get tickets to come in, there is a substantial amount. The Home Office is making a killing just from migration, legal migration, that is, entries into the country. So it's a very tough argument for many people in this country. Yes, there's an economic advantage of migration, of legal migration. But also, you have to consider the people that this government serve, who unfortunately have had to bear the brunt of an overcongested country with a healthcare and a housing crisis system that is breaking down because it simply cannot contribute or even what's the word I'm looking for? They cannot deal with the amount of people coming in. It's just too much for them to handle. So this is why this debate is so core to legislation, to policy, and to a response from the government. And it would also happen if the Labour Party, the opposition party, come into governance. They would also have to tackle this. It's not an issue that goes away quite easily.
Well said, Lape. Now, when it comes to the main drivers of this rise in, non-EU immigration since 2021, we know that it's study, work, and humanitarian reasons. But there seems to be a lot of focus dedicated to the study and work aspects when it comes to this. And that's what the Prime Minister is actually boasting about. Can you tell us more about the backlash that has come as a result of this?
Very good question there, because the reason why there's a lot of backlash is because unfortunately or fortunately, the Home Office has, of course, done their research and has found that universities, of course, are benefiting from a system where students are coming in, especially international students who, again, pay a whopping amount to be here and study here, are using that system as a back route for a visa and immigration stay. Now, it's become the focus of this debate, sadly. But actually, like I said earlier, a lot of these students that are coming in are actually studying a lot of skilled, necessary degrees that actually are contributing back into this economy. I mean, on average, just to put this into context for you, an average international student from around the world that comes to the UK pays on average about £15,000 just to study here. That's a significant amount of money, and that's minus their living cost, and they're coming in and out of university. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. What the government has an issue with is the fact that they bring along dependents with them, which for normal reasons, if you're coming to a country that is not your familiar environment, you would want to bring your family with you, especially people that have children. Now, that's what they have an issue with. The Home Secretary, Suala Braverman, has said on several occasions that she doesn't agree that if you are coming to study and intending on returning, your family do not necessarily need to come along with you. Now, this issue has been going on in the media, of course, for a number of days now. But it's, again, worth adding here that we have to be factual. Now, Nigerians are set to contribute to 40% of international students that bring in dependents. But actually, there's an argument here that's been forgotten about, and that is the fact that Indian, Pakistani, and people from the Philippines, Filipino students, are actually much higher than the Nigerian students. They come far ahead. Unfortunately, they've all been grouped and bunched up into dealing with this net migration, where they believe that if an average student isn't bringing 2 or 3 people along with them, then that will essentially reduce the net migration. The question is, though, is that enough to reduce those numbers? Because if you look at the numbers again, sorry, I'm a numbers person, but if you look at the numbers again, the significant proportion of net migration that contributes to that 606,000 figure is actually people coming via the humanitarian route, and that's people from Ukraine and Hong Kong. There's a school of thought and a consistent debate going on that people feel as though that there is more focus on people coming from outside of the EU. Now, for example, we know that when the Ukrainian war broke out, there was a lot more warm welcomeness for people that were coming from certain parts. So it becomes an argument of, is it okay to have humanitarian asylum seekers coming from within Europe and places like Hong Kong as well? But it's a different argument for people coming from other war-torn areas of the world. So it's a numbers game, but I think the UK government are trying to tackle the easiest route first, which is that study route.
The UK net migration issues. Lape, Olarinoye, many thanks for your thoughts and the update.